Let's say you're part of a team working out in the forest. You're cutting down trees on what feels like a normal day. Then you accidentally find something incredible.
One of the team members, Kit Rogers, he's wading through dense foliage. The team's getting ready for a large-scale operation.
Just as they're about to begin, Kit Rogers spots something on the ground that definitely is not a tree.
He looks down, he sees an iron door.
Curious, he pries the door open and sees a small shaft leading down. He decides to investigate, and what he finds is a buried bunker.
The chamber is about 23 feet long, 10 feet wide. There's some broken timber bed frames, but really nothing else survives inside the structure. At the far end, though, there's an escape hatch.
He thinks he's found something special that's long been rumored to have been hidden in this area. One of the famous Churchill bunkers.
The Churchill bunkers were built as part of a secret operation during some of the darkest days of World War II.
Fearing that the Germans might conduct an invasion of some kind, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill creates a clandestine organization that he calls the Auxiliary Units.
Unofficially, they're known as Churchill's Secret Army.
This isn't some sort of an elite unit. These men are farmers and miners, but they bring one critical advantage to the scenario, and that is an intimate familiarity with the land.
The main purpose of these units is to act as a resistance force in case the Germans do invade.
This is an army designed to fight to the death as a last resort. Essentially, it's a suicide mission.
To give this force a chance against an invading army, they need the element of surprise.
So all across Britain, an estimated 500 of these Churchill bunkers were constructed in order to house this army.
Their locations are secret, and their entrances are disguised so they can't be seen from the air.
Fortunately, Churchill's last-ditch army is never called into service, and that's because of the fact that the Nazis do not invade the United Kingdom.
A few years later, when World War II comes to a close, Churchill's secret army is disbanded, and the bunkers are abandoned.
The locations of these bunkers have never been confirmed, and to date, just about 200 of them have been found.
Investigators are sent out to examine the underground position and compare it against other known Churchill bunkers. And what they discover is it is a perfect match. This is indeed a Churchill bunker.
The location of this newly discovered bunker still remains a secret to this day.
But who knows? If you're out and about wandering around the English countryside, you might stumble across one of the ones that has yet to be discovered.
Off the coast of Germany in the Bay of Gelting, the World Wildlife Fund drops a diver into the water to retrieve a missing net. As he gets closer, he notices that the net is hooked onto this odd-looking dark rock with these white specks on it.
Upon closer inspection, he realizes that the white specks are actually characters on what appears to be an old typewriter. Since an old typewriter is really out of place on the seafloor, he decides to pull it up.
Once they get the object out of the water and they take a close look at it, they realize this actually isn't a typewriter at all.
This strange discovery is a Nazi M3 Enigma cipher machine.
It's believed that cracking German naval Enigma alone ended the Second World War 1 year earlier than it would have ended otherwise.
How did this crucial piece of the Nazi war machine wind up at the bottom of a bay?
By the spring of 1945, the Allies had the upper hand against the faltering German forces. The end of the war in Europe is in sight.
Shortly before the German surrender in May 1945, the German High Command orders Operation Regenbogen, Operation Rainbow, by which they ordered both the U-boats and surface vessels to scuttle themselves, sink themselves, deliberately. so they could not be seized by the Allies after the war.
In Gelting Bay alone, around 50 U-boats are sent to the bottom, many of them carrying Enigma machines.
While over 40,000 Enigmas were made during the war, less than 300 remain. So the divers' find is potentially worth serious money.
Enigma machines have sold at auction from between $50,000 to $500,000.
But instead of selling the machine, the divers donate it.
The divers turn over the Enigma to researchers. Today, if you go to the Museum of Archaeology in Schleswig, you can see the machine on display. And it's kind of cool because it also serves as a reminder of the brain power that it took to defeat the Nazis. It's April 22nd, 1956, and a team of workers are looking for an underground phone cable in East Berlin.
It's been pouring rain for days, the ground is completely saturated, and the phone lines have gone down.
It's thought that this may be because of a short in a wire that's underground. And so a team of workers are dispatched to start digging for the faulty wire.
So it's 2 in the morning. These guys are out there with their shovels, and they're digging, and they're digging, and they're hoping to find cables so they can fix the problem. But they find something else.
They hit concrete that isn't supposed to be there.
The workers can't help but be curious, so they crack open a small hole and they look inside.
To their amazement, they find an underground room full of high-tech equipment. The workers notify their superiors, and when they investigate, they find that there's a tunnel connecting Communist East Berlin to American, British, and French-controlled West Berlin. By the time that the covert plan is uncovered, the CIA has already amassed 40,000 hours of recorded conversations, and they have compiled 1,750 intelligence reports based on those tapes.
This is a windfall of Soviet secrets for the West. It covers everything from troop movements to the names and identities of key players in the atomic and intelligence programs to the location of military bases throughout Europe.
5 years later, this story takes an unexpected turn.
In 1961, the British arrest one of their own intelligence agents, George Blake. As it turns out, he was a double agent who was feeding intelligence information to the Soviets for years.
While in custody, Blake confesses to having shared secrets about Operation Gold with the Soviets years before the tunnel was built.
So if the Soviets knew about the tunnel, why didn't they say something sooner?
The Soviets realized that if they were to expose the tunnel, they would lose their double agent, Blake, because the leak would immediately be traced back to him.
He's providing the communists in the Soviet Union a treasure trove of classified and top secret information. And so if they watch what they say, they're not going to tip their hand because they know that the Americans are listening.
But in 1956, the Soviets decide to use their find as leverage.
Now, Khrushchev, who's the premier of the Soviet Union at this time, has plans to visit the West. And he has this information in his back pocket. And he plans to use it to make a big splash in the Western press.
So the Soviets come up with this story about the bad cable to justify sending out a team to begin digging and thereby discover the secret tunnel. This cover story doesn't just preserve Blake's identity, it also gives Khrushchev exactly what he wanted, something to hold over the West's head.
In other words, this accidental find is not so accidental after all.
There never was any issue with the telephone wires. The Soviets sent these unsuspecting workers out knowing full well what it was that they would find.
The discovery was just a cover story in this Cold War chess match that pitted the East against the West.